The first main event of the American season is the Winter Nationals held in California, where the sport is supposed to have originated with high school students trying to beat each other away from traffic lights. Of course, it's now tremendously sophisticated with super-tuned engineering and knife-edge reflexes the order of the day. Well, at Pomona Raceway, the commentators are Jim Lampley and Sam Posey, who has remarked that though the drivers are people who are supposed to love motors, their greatest joy is to subject them to a brief form of torture.
This year, the torture is spread over 2 weekends as racing barely got underway a week ago before being rained out. Before that happened, Gary Beck, in the glamorous top fuel category, covered the quarter-mile track in 5.52 seconds, a time which will become a new National Hot Rod Association record if he can back it up today with a time within 1%, 5.57 or less. His semifinal opponent, Shirley Muldowney, the biggest name in the sport, who, unlike most of the racers, doesn't do any work on her own car.
I don't need anything more to think about when I go to the starting line. I should think about reaction time and doing everything right and not making a mistake. Hopefully, Gary will have too much to think about. That's the advantage of being a woman.
There is a look at Gary Beck of El Toro, California, who will be in the blue car racing against the distinctive paint car of Shirley Muldowney from Mount Clemens, Michigan. It costs something well over $250,000 a year to keep one of these top fuel cars in competition for a year, and these are probably the 2 most financially well-backed racers in the class.
And each run, Jim, costs a lot of money. $900 for the fuel alone. The tires are only good for about 6 runs, and each time they run them, you expect to burn at least 2 or 3 pistons in the engine.
The Christmas tree, as they call it. You'll see one flash of yellow light toward the bottom, then the green, which means go. And they're off. Shirley Muldowney with the early edge, and she is going to win the race easily. So Muldowney eliminates Gary Beck from the competition, and there'll be no NHRA record for Beck.
Well, let's have another look at the start. Muldowney had been having trouble making her starts, Jim, during the week, but she made a clutch adjustment just before this run, and as you can see, just a few yards off, she's gained a full car length over Gary Beck.
The other semifinal matchup in the top fuel class produces Jody Smart of San Antonio, Texas, against Jerry Ruth of Seattle, Washington, who won this championship 6 years ago. Ruth will be on the near side of your screen, Smart on the far side. Jody Smart estimates, incidentally, that his car produces about 500 horsepower less at its peak than the other cars in the class, but he believes that he gets a more consistent performance out of the engine that way. Instantaneous reaction to the green light, one of the real keys to success in this sport. And as they take off, it appears that Smart left him a little bit at the line, and even though fishtailing just a little bit, Jody Smart was able to win.
Let's have another look at that run in some detail, Jim. The lights in the upper right of the screen there are the staging lights, and they trigger the lights here on the Christmas tree. Now watch the third light up from the bottom, a yellow light. When it comes on, there'll be just 0.3 of a second before the green light, which starts the race, comes on. Both men make perfect starts. They're dead even after a few yards. But the first major development occurs here when Smart's tires begin to smoke. That's excessive wheel spin. So he shifts gears, and in slow motion, we see him fighting for control. Both cars are doing over 150 miles an hour here. Next, as Smart regains control, Ruth's engine begins to fail. Notice that his rear tires have stopped spinning. That line is the first part of the timing trap, which will measure the car's top speed. Smart has caught Ruth and is traveling much faster at this stage. There's the finish line, where the elapsed time is measured and the race won and lost. Smart wins this one. The last line is the far end of the speed trap. Ruth is slowing and trying to save what's left of his engine, and he is measured at 16 miles an hour less than Jody Smart.
So it will be Jody Smart who moves on to challenge Shirley Muldowney in the finals of the top fuel category. Back at the Winternational Drag Racing Championships, because it's a short, straight shot, this form of racing does not produce the kind of danger that some other forms of auto racing do. But we are taking a look back now at an unusual crash which took place a week ago in early rounds in the alcohol funny car competition. The car which you saw totaled belonged to Lou Gasparelli. It collided after the start with the car belonging to Lee Zeinert.
Well, it's hard to pin the blame here, Jim, because both cars are so out of shape, but it is Gasparelli's there on the right of your screen. who seems to come more across the center line than the other car. And of course, ironically, it's Gasparelli's that then becomes absolutely total in this collision with the guardrail. It's fascinating the way the rear wheel, the throttle must be partly jammed, because look at that rear wheel spinning and just throwing up clouds and clouds of smoke, tire smoke.
Which created some suspense regarding Gasparelli's condition, but because of the sturdy roll cage with which these cars are equipped, he was unhurt. That happened in the alcohol funny car competition. The more prestigious class is fuel funny car racing, and earlier Sam Posey took a look at one of those cars.
It has often been observed that there is nothing humorous at all about a funny car. They are only a fraction of a second slower down the strip than the all-out AA fuel dragsters, and to sit in one, as I am now, is a truly frightening and claustrophobic experience. The body is just a thin fiberglass shell. In spite of its size, it weighs just over 100 pounds. The driver sits right behind this enormous engine and right beside these rear tires. If something goes wrong, the only way out of this car is through a hatch in the roof.
And now we're going to see the two semifinal races in the funny car division. The first one will match the defending NHRA funny car champion, Canadian Frank Hawley, against Tom McEwen of Fountain Valley, California. Then we'll see Tom Anderson of Macedon, New York, against Gary Bergen of Stanton, California. Funny cars. These cars are almost as fast as the top fuel dragsters, which you saw earlier. And in this race, it is Hawley on the left and McEwen on the right.
They're almost as fast, and they're a great deal more difficult to drive, Jim, because they have a much shorter wheelbase. They're not as stable when they come off the line.
Frank Hawley grabbed a bit of an edge at the start, and he is going to hold that lead all the way through the quarter mile. So it is Frank Hawley of London, Ontario, and Canada who easily eliminates McEwen and moves into the funny car final. Now here's the reaction of McEwen's pit crew. Remember, the cars don't stop until they're a half mile down the track. There's Hawley's pit crew. They have just now focused on the fact that their man won.
The other semifinal funny car match is between Tom Anderson and Gary Bergen. And until just moments ago, the Tom Anderson crew, including Anderson himself, was completing a major engine overhaul and change. In fact, there goes a new cylinder head right onto the thing. Anderson very, very much involved in the work himself, and it makes you wonder, Jim, as he comes to the line, how can his concentration be 100% after he's just worked that hard on the car?
Things have gone well for him, though, in earlier rounds. Anderson is the leading qualifier in this division at 238+ miles per hour. Interesting that the men considered the two biggest bankrolls in the division, Kenny Bernstein and Don Prudhomme, were both eliminated in earlier rounds. Now there's the start. Bergen on the left, Anderson on the right, and it is going to be Tom Anderson who holds the edge all the way down the track. So Anderson, the leading qualifier, will move into the final against Frank Hawley. We'll take another look at the start, and it is fascinating to reflect that this engine, which won the run for Tom Anderson and has put him into the final, was just moments ago in pieces in his pit.
Pretty exciting stuff. You had an engine change. You got it together in time to win a very, very close race. How do you feel?
I feel great. I feel good because the car performed like it should. Even with the engine change and everything, it's tough, but we done it.
It's amazing to me to see an engine that far apart and back together in time to do what you just did.
We got a good crew.
A little while ago, Sam Posey was able to ask Frank Hawley about his mental preparation for the final, the 6 seconds or less in which he becomes a champion or a runner-up.
I usually feel pretty relaxed in the car, and for something particular like this final round, I'll have to make a concerted effort to fire myself up for it.
So we'll see now if Hawley has been able to fire himself up to the necessary level. That is Hawley in the brown car and Tom Anderson in the yellow and white.
Hawley and his whole team have an approach of consistency. Every run they lay down is almost the same. And what it means is that their competitors, Jim, sometimes feel they have to almost overreach themselves in order to beat Hawley. The pressure is more on the competitor than on Hawley.
Anderson gets the jump at the start, but now they seem to be even in the middle of the track, and Frank Hawley pulls away to win at the end. So Frank Hawley, who had been the #2 qualifier in the division, beats the #1 qualifier, Tom Anderson, to win the race.
Well, one of the appeals of drag racing is the unequivocal winning and losing, especially in a complicated world like ours. But in this race, there's a real seesaw battle that gives great excitement as Anderson gets the start, but now Hawley comes on in the middle part of the run and literally powers past him. Frank Hawley, the winner, and by a very, very small margin. Frank, it was no, it sure wasn't. How did the run go for you?
I think it run about as good as it's run all day. I don't know exactly what it run. I saw that yellow and white car for a long time, and then down near the end, his car hasn't been falling off, but we just kind of snuck around him.
Tom, come in here. Tom Anderson, it was an awfully close match you two guys just gave us.
Sure was.
What was your version of how it ended? It was awfully close there.
Well, what happened was we've been hurting this engine all day, okay? And I richened it up, and I richened it up a little bit too much, and when we got down towards the end, he just outpowered me.
Thank you. You richened it just enough.
Just enough.
Now here's a look at veteran Jody Smart as he climbs into his Top Fuel dragster to ready for the final in that division against Shirley Muldowney.
From now until the moment of the green light, Jody will try to bring his emotions under full control, to function almost automatically, to keep his mind totally clear for the green light. You know, Jim, most drivers who become great champions either do so because of their love of winning or their fear of losing. And Shirley Muldowney combines both traits, and it makes her very tough.
She was the runner-up at last year's Winter Nationals, losing to Dick LaHaye when her engine died at the starting lot. There's the green. Shirley Muldowney has the early edge. Smart is fishtailing, and this is going to be an easy win for Shirley Muldowney. The crowd heartily approves as Muldowney now has her 16th NHRA national event victory, and her pit crew races down to the far end to celebrate with them.
Shirley Muldowney has been a model of consistency, partly because of these great starts that she makes. She was in the final 7 out of 10 times last year and won 4 major races. Here she's on her way to another one in a style that is so typical of her, Jim. The perfect start, making her competition come to her, and you notice Jody Smart getting out of shape as he gives it too much throttle. Shirley completely in control and headed toward another major Winter Nationals victory.
There is a movie about her life being made right now, and with each victory like this one, the legend grows just a little bit larger.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Sam.
Certainly, it's not astonishing to find you here. You are the defending world champion, and now you've started the season brilliantly by winning the Winter Nationals. That must be very satisfying.
It is. It's wonderful. It's a hard one to win, you know, and we were sweating the final a little bit. I mean, the ETs were so close. Just don't know, you know. I didn't know if it was going to be Jody's first one. I was hoping it wasn't.
Well, the world champion Shirley Muldowney going one better this year in the Winter Nationals with a very popular win, and the mind-blowing acceleration of those machines providing plenty of thrills and some close finishes. But let's move on now.